Hey everyone, it's Susan Kaufman. I'm here for Attitude Magazine's weekly ADHD Experts broadcast. Today we have a great speaker. It's the latest in our Success at School series this fall. We'll be doing Success at School topics through September this year. And today's topic is a great one. It's about building confidence in your child heading into the new school year. And I'm especially pleased to welcome back one of our most popular expert speakers, Kirk Martin of Celebrate Calm. On average, research tells us that children with attentional and executive function deficits have received as many as 20,000 more negative comments by age 12 than their neurotypical peers. So it's no surprise that the very thought of another school year may prompt your child, and you for that matter, to melt down or shut down. So Kurt will help us heading into this new school year with a game plan to bolster confidence. And he'll be talking specifically about how you can relieve your child's anxiety, improve focus and attention and impulse control, give your child tools to succeed rather than punishing him or her for failing, stop power struggles over homework time, and help your child build new friendships in the cafeteria and on the playground. So, Kirk, thank you so much for being here. We're always happy to have you. Let me tell you a bit about Kirk. He is the founder of Celebrate Calm. He's a very highly in-demand expert and speaker on parenting strong-willed children with special needs throughout the world. He's actually given over 600 parents and teachers in 19 countries very specific practical strategies to stop yelling, stop defiance, and stop power struggles. So you'll find much more about his program on his website, www.celebratecalm.com. Just a few housekeeping tips before Kirk starts speaking. Post your questions in the box on your screen in your control panel. Post them at any time. Your participation is anonymous. After Kirk is finished his live presentation, he'll take as many questions as time permits. If we don't get to your question, please go to the attitudemag.com forums and scroll down to webinars, and you'll find a thread set up there for Kirk's presentation, today's presentation. If you post your question there, he will be checking back in the next couple of days, and he'll be answering some more questions. So if you'd like to take notes while Kirk speaks, you can download the slides now in the control panel in the handout section, or after this session ends, you'll find a replay of this webinar, including the presentation slides for download on our website, attitudemag.com/webinar. So with that, let me turn it over to Kirk. Again, thank you, Kirk, for being here today.
Susan, thank you for being here or hosting me. I'm always excited because your parents that listen are always so engaged, and the follow-up questions are always they're just awesome questions. So anyway, I know school's getting back. We've been in schools the last couple of weeks training teachers and parents, and you can feel all the awesome anxiety that everybody has because you've had the summer off. And I know some of you are ready for your kids to go back to school. But hopefully after you listen to this, we'll go into the school year with, hopefully 10 or 15 really practical strategies to help make this year different than last year. So as we mentioned, our kids often feel like failures because they struggle with focus and attention, impulse control, executive function, and organization, social skills. And in our experience, a lot of behavior charts just don't work that well. And as most of you have found out, consequences don't even really work for your kids. They're just kind of immune to them. Or after a while, all they've ever experienced is consequences. So they begin to shut down, and it kind of crushes their spirit. So let's kind of dig into this. Our two-step strategy for success at school, and I'd say at home also, is one, today we'll get to the root of your child's challenges, right? So instead of just reacting to the outward behavior, I want to understand why they're doing certain things so that we can develop proactive solutions that help them. And then the second thing is giving kids tools to succeed, because I can guarantee is by the time we get into late September, early October, and your kids are starting to struggle a little bit, what happens is everybody starts focusing on consequences. Well, what are we going to take away? What are we going to do? And I'd like us to shift that perspective instead to saying, okay, I know my child struggles with X, Y, and Z. What if we put all of our energy into giving him tools to succeed instead of just waiting for him to fail? And so that's the approach we're going to use today. So the 5 steps, the 5 different areas we're going to focus on are anxiety, attention, focus, and impulse control, creating successes rather than punishing, giving tools to improve homework, we'll get into that, and then accentuating the positive qualities. And I'll mention this here in case I forget. Intensity with your kids is really important. We tend to give intensity to our kids when they do something wrong, right? You hear it in your tone. How many times do I have to tell you, what were you thinking? If you would just focus, it would only take you 45 minutes to do your homework instead of it taking 3 hours. And all of our frustration builds and the intensity comes with the negative. And so if you're taking notes, you and your spouse, or if you're a single mom or single dad, for the first few weeks of school, really make it a point to bring the intensity to the times your kids actually make good choices and do things well. And this is kind of a funny analogy that people will laugh at our live events, but think about it. With many of our kids, we use those red, yellow, and green behavior charts, right? And so the reason I don't like them is because we tend to view our kids like they come home every day. Their entire day is judged by whether they have a red or a green, right? And so what if you at your job every day, at the end of the day, you had to stop by your boss's office and he either gave you a happy face or a sad face. And then you had to take that home to your spouse and kids. And then your spouse is like, seriously, honey, 2 days in a row with a sad face? What's going on? We need to take away your cell phone tonight. But that's kind of what we do to our kids. And it's just not fair. And it doesn't work, partly because many of your kids, and I'm kind of just blunt with this, they struggle with impulse control and behavior. And you know this because from the womb, they've kind of been in trouble. And so what happens is they eventually begin to shut down and say, you know what, no matter what I do, it's never good enough. And I can't compare to my siblings. I can't compare to my peers because they're just always do things well and I don't. And so they eventually shut down. And so this school year, let's really make it a point to really stay positive. It doesn't mean we don't address the negative things, but we really have to dig in and be really consistent with noticing when kids make good choices. So let's talk about anxiety first. And here's where anxiety comes from. It tends to come from unknowns. So if we step back for a minute and think about your child's brain, and I'm not going to do the scientific, a lot of jargon here. I'll just use it in layman's terms, which is your kids have very busy brains, right? They're always thinking, and these impulses and thoughts are bombarding their brains. And it's kind of like if you have clothes or socks in a dryer and they're tumbling around at 100 miles per hour. That's what your child's brain is like. And so it's very busy in there. And they often feel like they don't have control of their own brains. And if they have sensory issues, many of your kids don't even feel like they have control of their bodies, right? And so what happens is if I don't feel in control of myself, my impulse is to try to control other people and situations. So, let me use this while I'm on it. Many of you have kids who are bossy, right? They're kind of bossy. They don't play well with other kids because they change the rules of the game, they cheat, right? Or they'll quit. And all of those things are about creating some sense of control or ownership of their lives. So we had, over the course of a decade, we had about 1,500 kids come into our home, about 10 to 15 kids at a time. And I remember a lot of times we would do an after-school camp where kids would come after school and I do homework with them. Because when it's not your own child, you can be much more patient than when you're the parent. And so the kids would come into my house and they'd start bossing me around. And look, it's hard because my initial thought is to look at the child and say, hey, you little bossy jerk, I'm the boss of this home. No wonder you don't have any friends. Now, I hope that doesn't offend you, but that's what you think. Just never say that. So in our curriculum, what we try to do is we try to give kids tools and we try to give kids wisdom into why they're doing what they're doing. And I remember one day, very specifically, this is probably 10 years ago, I looked down at this child and I said, Jacob, I think I know what's going on. You were just at school all day long. Everyone is telling you exactly what to do. It all feels out of your control. In the cafeteria, it's loud. At recess, nobody, it's hard playing with other kids, right? And you come to my house and there's all these kids here and you feel out of control. You feel overwhelmed. And I know exactly what that feels like because I'm the same exact way. When I get tired, I tend to boss people around. So here's the thing. You don't have to be the boss of me. You don't have to control things. I'm in control. Everything's cool here. But here's what you could do for me. My broom is broken in the basement. So if you could go to the basement and find some duct tape, you could be like MacGyver. And if you could fix that broom for me, man, I'd really appreciate it. And so what I was doing was identifying the root of the issue. It's not that your child is just a bossy little jerk, even if that's what the outward behavior looks like, right? The issue is he's overwhelmed. And when most of us get overwhelmed, we tend to try to control situations and people. So instead of reacting to that, instead I tried to meet the need. He's overwhelmed looking for control. So I don't give him control of my house, but what I gave him ownership or control of was fixing something for me because I knew he's good at fixing things. And there's a key if you're taking notes, find out what your kids are good at doing. The hard part is they're not always good at doing school, but they're often good at building things, fixing things. They're often very creative, right? And so when I notice that a child is feeling out of control, my go-to plan is to give him a specific job to do something in which he excels because that builds his confidence and it gives him a sense of control. I hope that makes sense. So let's think about getting your kids to school and getting them on time. So I have a few ideas for you. If the root of the issue is that your child has anxiety, and anxiety is caused by all those unknowns, right? Like, are we having a test today? How am I going to do? What if I'm not good at recess? What if the friends don't play with me? What if I get in trouble today? All the social anxiety, performance, test anxiety start to weigh on your kids, and their natural impulse is to say, oh, I'm just not going. I'm not going to school today. And they'll tell you that their stomach hurts because it probably is upset, and they'll try to get out of it. So the single best thing I found to counter the unknowns of anxiety is this. I would go to the school and find a teacher, find an assistant principal, find a custodian. I don't care who it is, a school counselor, and ask that adult to speak to your child and say, oh, Rebecca, I could really use your help. Listen, you're so good at working with computers. You're so good at X. I need some help every morning with this. So I need you to be on time. In fact, if your mom or dad are bringing you to school, if you could come a few minutes early, that would really help me out. So when they wake up in the morning, their thoughts aren't so much on all of the scary unknowns. Their thought goes to, Mom, Dad, remember, Mrs. Henderson needs my help because she says I'm really good at doing X. They're more likely to be held accountable to another adult than they are just to you, right? So a couple other tools for you in the morning. And a big part of our curriculum is about controlling yourself, right? Because your kids will pick up on your attitude. They pick up on your anxiety, right? Because when you just think, when you wake your kids up for school, you are often riddled with anxiety. What if they don't get up? What if they're late? What if I'm late to work? What's going to happen if they're truant? What happens? And so we walk into that bedroom and we already have all this drama inside our own hearts and heads. So one thing I used to do with my son is I would walk into his bedroom and I knew there was going to be resistance. I did. But I would sit on his bed, just on the side of it, and I'd start with one of two things. Sometimes I would wake him up with a compliment. Why? Because it just freaked him out and he wasn't expecting it. He's expecting, Case, come on, you got to get up. Come on, we got school. You got to get dressed. You got to come down. You got to eat something healthy. You got to get your shoes on. You got to get your backpack. Pop, 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 pop. And see, all of those things just overwhelm your kids. So I would begin with a compliment, something maybe a little bit different. Sometimes I would compliment him and say, you know what I realized about you, Casey? You're really good at arguing. And I'm not being funny with that. I really mean it, because what it shows me is you have really good critical thinking skills, and you have a strong sense of justice and what's right and wrong. And you're not afraid to speak up for yourself when you think something's wrong. And I appreciate that quality. Now, inside, what I'm really thinking is, I don't like that quality. Please stop arguing so much. But the point is, those qualities that irritate you most about your kids are probably the very qualities that are going to make them successful in life one day, right? And so I want to affirm them and use them in appropriate ways. Now, the other thing that I would do is I would try to connect with my son in the morning. And so one morning I remember going in, and I knew he was tired because he didn't sleep well and he stayed up too late. He didn't want to go to school. And I walked in and I said, Case, and at this time, he was really into playing guitar and he was discovering blues music. He was a little bit older. And I said, Casey, I found this really cool John Lee Hooker song. It is so cool. Listen, if you get your shower, get dressed, and get downstairs in the next 15 minutes, you and I can fix breakfast together and we'll listen to this song. So I was drawing him and leading him. And with a strong-willed child, I know you know this already, you can't push and force them. They will just dig in and fight you. So I'm always drawing. I'm always leading them to a calm place. And so find something that you can do in the morning where you can actually bond them. And here's another big principle we really like. You are going to be irritated by a lot of things this school year with your kids, and you're going to get very frustrated. And what I want you to know is, when you're getting frustrated over all these different meltdowns, all these different things that are happening, they're actually huge opportunities to turn them into something, a situation in which you can actually bond with your child and teach them skills. And that's what I finally started to do right after not doing it the right way. I finally started to realize whenever I ran into resistance, it was an opportunity. And if I would step back and really think about what my child or children needed, and then I could meet those needs and connect with them, I got so much more compliance with them. I'll give you one more in the morning, which is for younger kids, which is doing a treasure hunt. Because kids love treasure hunts. And it may sound like this. Hey, Jacob, listen, I hid your favorite Lego fire engine in the backyard. Bet you can't find it before breakfast is ready. And now what I've done is I have focused that little brain on doing something that's a challenge, which your kids like, and it's something very purposeful and specific. Now, in order to go outside in the backyard, and it could be in the basement, could be in the closet, wherever you want, he's got to get dressed to do that. And so when he gets dressed to go outside, I've got him moving now. That's part of the hard part with these kids, is just getting them out of bed to do something. And listen, I do weird stuff with kids. Listen, if he wants to eat outside, while he's outside, he finds his fire engine. Now he's just completed a specific task. And now instead of getting on him because he didn't brush his hair, brush his teeth, he didn't wear the right clothes, he didn't do this, now my first thing I get to say is, dude, how'd you find that so quickly? Man, you're good at problem solving. I love that you're such a good thinker. How did you do that? You know what? Tomorrow morning, why don't we do this? If you get up on time, you can go outside. I don't care. You can go outside in your underoos. Who cares? I don't care. Go out in your Batman outfit. You hide something in the backyard, or maybe it's in the basement because you don't want to go outside. Hide something in the basement, and I have to find it. And so we're introducing a little bit of fun, but specific jobs to do in the morning, and we're getting him moving. So I'm going to leave it at that. There are a lot of other things that we can do, and if there are more questions on that, come back to that. But do remember to talk to teachers and the school about giving your kids jobs to do, because it's extremely helpful. Okay, so let's talk tools in the classroom. And this is really topical because I just trained teachers yesterday in Northern Virginia outside of DC, and they love these ideas. So I'm going to go through a few of them here. I know the big thing now is fidget spinners, right? And so everybody's all excited about them and all worked up. Most of the schools where I'm going in to teach are not allowing fidget spinners, and I kind of get that, right? So the idea of the fidget spinner is this. Fidgeting can be a really helpful thing for your child, right? It can't appropriate fidgeting. Tapping a pencil on your desk doesn't work. Fidget spinners, probably too distracting for everybody else. I wish I could show you this, but you can see it on our website, and I'll put a special link up there so you can kind of see a picture of it right after this webinar. But we use something called a sensory strip. And here's what it is. There's nothing magical. You can make your own. It'll cost 15 cents to do it. Get some double-sided tape, and maybe it's 6 inches long. And on that double-sided tape, find some other little textury objects that your kids like. I mean, it can be something furry or fuzzy or denim, something at a, it could be a zipper even, but it could be something that you get in an arts and crafts store. Just watch your kids, see what they like playing with. And then I tape those right onto the other side of the double-sided tape. So I have this little strip of fabric, and then I can peel off the back and I can put this underneath the child's desk. So picture a classroom, your child's sitting at his desk, and underneath this desk is a little piece of a strip of double-sided tape, and it's got different kinds of fabrics on it. Well, here's the beauty of it. It doesn't make any noise. Your child can't take this up and hit other kids with it. He can't throw it around, right? And it's stimulating his brain because research says when kids play with textured objects, it actually improves concentration. And so what it's doing is it's helping the neurotransmitters in the brain actually connect better so they can concentrate. Now, it doesn't change the entire school day, right? But a few times when your child is zoning out or wanted to play with his classmate's face or hair, he had something appropriate to fidget with. So big principle, whenever you tell kids to stop doing something, always give them something appropriate to do. You have kids with a lot of energy, and it's not just physical energy, it's mental energy because they're very bright kids and they're always thinking. So just saying, keep your hands to yourself doesn't work. They have to do something with their hands. I'll give you another example with those of you that have kids that have impulse control issues, that have problems sitting still. Oh, by the way, with the sensory strip, I forgot to mention, for middle school and high school kids, you can't put this under their desk because they're probably going to get beat up. Okay, so we don't want them getting ostracized. But you can take the same principle and you can sew something into that one hoodie sweatshirt that they wear all year. You can put things in their binders, on their shoes, the head of a toothbrush, which is really, really small that they can carry around. See, they can play with that head of a toothbrush. It's really interesting feeling. It doesn't make any noise, and it will clean out their nasty little fingernails. So I love it. So here's the setup. You've got a child, and this could be 3rd grade, 8th grade, 11th grade, doesn't matter to me, but your child has trouble sitting still. And so after about 16 or 17 minutes in class, your child gets up, starts walking around class and talking to other people. The natural response of a teacher is, hey, Jacob, hey, look at me, hey, sit down, look at me, stop walking around. But that's pretty much what your child's entire life is, which is, hey, stop it, stop, and they begin to tune it out. So instead, I want to give him a tool, because just saying, you need to focus better, you need to sit still for an hour. If it were that easy, your kids would do it. They struggle with it. I'm not making excuses for it, and I don't want to allow them. See, I'm not saying, oh, little guy with an ADHD brain, if you get bored in my class, just walk around. I'm not saying that. So here's what I would do. I pull your child aside at recess, and I say these magical words, Jacob, I could really use your help. You guys know your kids love helping other adults. And I say, here's the deal. My mouth gets really dry when I'm teaching class, so I need your help. You and I are going to have a secret signal. And you can't see me doing this, but it's a secret signal. When I rub my nose or tug on my ear, here's what I want you to do. Jacob, you get up out of your seat. You come up to my desk. You grab my water bottle. You take it to the back of the room, refill it. You bring it up, put it on my desk, and then you sit down. You don't get to talk to anybody. You are not going to distract anybody. You're going to be Mr. Invisible. You up for that? And most of your kids to other adults will say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm talking in class, I start to lose his attention, and instead of correcting him and drawing attention, negative attention to your son or daughter, I give the secret signal. He comes up, does the water bottle, sets it down on my desk, and watch what happened. Now I get to say, hey, thanks, you're a good helper. Go sit down. And here's why I like it. It takes about 23 seconds to complete that task. So he didn't miss anything in class. I just created a success, because if you don't create successes, your kids will continually fail and eventually shut down. It was very, very specific. I told him exactly what I wanted. I talked to him like an adult too. I told him, hey, no talking to other kids, no distracting anybody else. Very firm, even matter of fact. I didn't yell at him, but I didn't baby him either. And that's how I like to talk to kids, with respect. This is what I expect, and I know you can do it. I like it because now he's completing a specific task, and it's something concrete. He can hold the water bottle and fill it up. And at the end of that sequence, now I get to praise him and affirm him with a smile, and he sits down. Now, here's where we build impulse control. We do that for a week. Next week, your son comes in, daughter comes in, I said, oh, Jacob, man, last week you're a good helper. This week, I believe you can sit in my class for 23 minutes before you need to move. So this week, here's how it works. After 16 or 17 minutes, when I see you being antsy, I'll glance at you so that I know that you know that I know you're struggling. But I'm going to go on teaching class because I believe in you, and I know you can sit for another 7 minutes. So I wait, and I eventually maybe get them up to 27 or 28 minutes. Now, I don't know what the limit is for your child, but here's the metric to use with your kids. I always affirm for progress, not perfection. So if you have a child who can only sit for 9 minutes, and I get them up to 11 minutes, and 14 minutes, and 16 minutes in first grade, I've made progress, and I'm good with that. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to give you one other quick idea, and then I've got to kind of move on because I do want to get to questions too. Kids who blurt out, perfect example. Your child blurts out, and he has one of two responses. Hey, stop blurting out. You're being rude. If you keep blurting out, I'm going to take away recess. But what I'd love for us to be able to tell our kids is to give them insight and to say, Jacob, I know why you blurt out. It's because you have this awesome brain that's always moving, and it's filled with all these ideas because you're like a junior Thomas Edison, man, thinking of ideas, and you're so passionate about them. And I wish you were that passionate about what I'm teaching you. You don't say that, but you're thinking it. But look, I love your passion. But Jacob, here's what happens. You get one of your ideas, you get really excited about it, but then you're afraid you're going to forget. And that's when you blurt out. And that's unacceptable in my class. I'm going to stop right here to point out a couple things. In the first example, I said, that's rude. Second example, that's unacceptable. I don't make excuses for it. It's wrong. I don't want you blurting in my class. Watch assigning motives to your child's behavior. When we say you're rude, the behavior is rude, but doesn't mean they meant to be rude, right? Try to watch using phrases like, if you would just apply yourself, because often they are working hard. They're just not getting the results, and it's hard. That will cause kids to shut down. In the second example, I explained to him, you've got this great brain, but the hard part for many of your kids is this. They have very strategic brains. They're good thinkers. That's why they ask why all the time, because they want to know the big picture. But what it means is they often struggle with short-term memory. So your child's sitting in class or talking at home with you, and he doesn't want to forget something. So instead of forgetting, the tool I use is I may say, Jacob, here's the deal. I'm going to give you 3 talk tickets. So imagine he gets these 3 little cardboard tickets I make up. Every time you get that impulse to blurt out in my class, instead, I want you to hold up one of your talk tickets and you can redeem it. And I'll either say, go ahead, redeem your talk ticket, share with me your amazing off-topic idea, because it's always going to be off-topic, or I'm going to say, Zip, I believe you can hold it until after class. And the cool thing is I've just given the child a tool, so when he's getting all antsy and he doesn't know and he's afraid he's going to forget, instead of just blurting out, he can hold up this ticket. And then I can acknowledge that and give him an opportunity to either say that now or to tell me at lunchtime another time. But the idea is this. I'm giving tools to succeed. So as you get into the school year and your child starts to struggle, which he or she will, I want the conversation with your spouse and the teachers to go from what are we going to take away to what tools can we give him to succeed. Homework. I'm going to do this very quickly, and if you have questions, we'll go through it more during the Q&A time. Be really creative with homework time. I'm going to throw out maybe 8 or 10 different ideas. Do homework. You're going to have to experiment. Let your kids listen to music while they're doing homework. Some kids need to stand at the kitchen counter while they're tapping on a sponge, so it doesn't make noise to bother the sibling, listening to music, eating a snack, because the chewing of a snack while doing homework actually creates rhythm in the brain. It actually helps them concentrate better, and it's also kind of relaxing to them. Weird one. Some kids will do better homework if you allow them to do it underneath the kitchen table or sitting in their closet. You guys know that your kids do odd things at times. Now, I think it's perfectly normal. Other people think it's odd. But I like weird things because weird things work for your kids. By the way, many kids will do better in the classroom if they can take tests underneath their desk. Yesterday, I asked 45 teachers, will you allow a child to sit under the desk if he asked? And 90% of them said yes. And the other ones, I asked the principal to fire them. I'm kidding, I didn't. But ask for those things. Advocate for your kids. Try doing review vocabulary words while they're jumping on a trampoline, while you're playing catch with a ball. Do homework in different parts of the house. There's lots of research about doing it in different places. At times I do homework outside. I do homework at a coffee shop, in different places. Just experiment with it. But by all means, control your own anxiety over homework time, because if you get frustrated with your child, he will get frustrated, and it's this nasty cycle. So again, if you have questions on that, let's do it during Q&A time, and I'll come back to that. Next slide. How to motivate kids who don't respond to consequences. I really kind of hit on this before of give kids positive intensity, catch them making good choices, use their positive qualities and their passions in purposeful ways. A lot of sibling issues come in because you have two children. You have one who's kind of a compliant, rule-following, kind of good child, so to speak, who does well in school, does really well with behavior, and everyone loves that child. And then you have your child who struggles, and he doesn't feel good about himself, so his natural impulse is to say mean things to or hit the sibling who's kind of the good one. And so one of the best ways to counter all of that negativity is to get your kids doing jobs, even for other neighbors. Find an older couple or older lady that lives in your neighborhood and say, I've got this awesome kid. He's got a lot of energy and loves cooking or baking or creating and writing, loves fixing things. Would you mind if he or she came down to your house a couple afternoons a week? I guarantee you, older people, retired people love having kids around because they miss that. And what they know is they can send your child back home and they don't have to like put them to bed. But you have a lot of retired teachers in your community too. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because other people will be so much more patient with your kids during homework time than you will be. And so, but I would love for your kids to be out doing jobs in the neighborhood, volunteering. Your kids, watch your kids that have the nastiest mouths. I guarantee they have the biggest hearts, right? So get them involved doing service projects. And here's why it's important. Many of you have kids who have gifts and talents and passions that don't get recognized or rewarded in school, because your kids are amazingly creative. They can build 4,000-piece Lego sets without looking at the directions. They can sell a stranger anything, but there are no grades for this. So to build confidence, I have to provide opportunities outside of school or outside of just getting grades, because that will help build your child's confidence, and that will actually help him in school. I hope that makes sense. Social success. Let me give you a couple of these very quickly. Many of your kids have something called asynchronous development. They're out of sync. Great book on that, called The Out of Sync Child. So many of you have a child who intellectually is up here, right? Very, very, very bright, gets along better with older kids and adults. Emotionally and socially, though, they're a year or two behind. They do silly things in class. They don't quite fit in. So they get along better with little kids and animals. So you can kind of see this dichotomy of like, they get along great with older people or younger people. Who do they struggle with? Kids their own age. It's really hard for them to connect. And just saying, oh, go run along, be nice, make friends. It's really hard for them. It's really unfair thing that they have to go through 12 years of school with only kids their own age because they struggle with those kids. So a couple ideas for you. I would go to the school, go talk to a teacher and say, do you know another boy or girl in this class who has the same interests as my son? My son's really into dinosaurs or Legos or the Alaskan sea turtle or football, whatever it is. Find a child who has a shared interest. Try to set up a play date. Again, can't do that with middle school, high school kids, so much a play date because, you know, what, they'll get beat up for that. You know what I mean? But set this up and do short play dates with your younger kids. Have that other child over to your house, short. Have them work on a project together, because just saying, you guys go run along and play, you know what's going to happen. Your child is probably going to control everything and boss the other child around. They won't want to come back. But if you work on a project together that takes advantage of or capitalizes on each child's strengths, now they're working together. And if they're doing something with you, say in the kitchen or out in the garage, now you can teach and model for your child how to ask questions. Many of your kids just don't know how to have conversations. So what happens is they get tense, and so they just start talking about the same thing over and over and over again. So I used to teach kids at my camp how to ask questions of other kids and find common interests. The other thing I would share with you is a great tool teachers use is, say at recess, your child doesn't play well with other kids. I will pull two kids together and say, oh, listen, Sarah, you are so good at drawing. You're so creative. And next week, we're doing this new unit on reptiles. I need some help. So Jennifer over there is really awesome at drawing too. So at recess, could you two help me? If I brought poster board outside, could you guys spend recess drawing some reptiles for me? And the next week, I'll put those posters up all over the classroom. It'll really help me out. And what you've done is you've just used the child's gifts and passions in a positive way, and you're showing them off to the rest of the class. And you've paired two kids up and given them a project to work on. It's just easier to make friends that way. Final thing I would say is with friendships is this. Please reinforce to your kids that it's okay if they don't have a lot of friends. I do not have a lot of friends. I have some very deep, close relationships. I'm not good with all the mindless, I'm not good at dinner party stuff. I don't like surface relationships. I seek out other people. Most of my guy friends are older than I am, and they have some substance. So I don't want a lot of friends, but I have some very good close friendships, fewer friends. The reason this is important is I was voted shyest boy in my high school class, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And if there's one thing we try to emphasize through our programs is there's nothing wrong with your child. They're just made in a different way, and they're made that way for a purpose and a reason. And I want them to be able to embrace that and know I'm different, but I'm different in a good way. And I have gifts and talents and passions that are advantageous even over other kids, even if I don't get the best grades. I have all of these awesome qualities inside of me. And when I use those qualities, I am successful and I am confident and I have a big heart and I share and I do the right thing. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and end on that. And that's great because I'm at the end of my slide. So questions, I'm open to however I can help you.
So Kirk, that was great. I mean, lots of comments here about how much people appreciate your focus on positivity and how much you get our kids. So thank you for everything. To the audience listening in, Kirk touched on.
Now I can't hear. Can you guys still hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Sorry. Okay. Kirk touched on many items. Please post whether you'd like him to talk further about homework, early mornings, friendships. Give us a sense of what your interests are. Let's see. Kirk, A number of questions about homework. Lots of people said homework. Any more strategies for homework? You mentioned
Yes,
being flexible and where you do homework, which I think is a great tip. But are any other concepts for homework?
Yes, I'll give you a few ideas, and this is my personal opinion, so you can disagree with it. I'm on the back end of this. My son is 24. I have never had the thought, oh, I wish we would have done homework more often. I wish we would have fought over it more. I will tell you, it is really hard, but you're going to have to be courageous. See, this is at the beginning of the school year. This is what I would encourage you to write down. What are your goals for this year? And here were some of my goals. I want to raise a confident, curious child who loves to learn. See, that sometimes takes me in a different direction than I just want to raise a child who gets good grades and goes to college, right? I wanted a curious child who loved to learn. There were times in elementary school years especially, because as all of you know, if you have middle school children, they will tell you grades don't matter until high school. And if they say that, I want you to look at them and say, you know what? You're really, really smart because you figured that out, and that's true. And I'm glad you're not wasting all of your time worrying about grades right now when it doesn't matter. That's good prioritization. Now, none of you are actually going to say that because you're going to freak out over it. But you should say that to your child because they're smart and they're not wasting their energy right now. But here's what I did with teachers at times, especially when my son was young. I would send a note in and I would say, last night we didn't do homework. Instead, we went outside and we played. Instead, Casey was really interested in a book on X subject, or we watched an educational video. We didn't do homework, but we were learning. And sometimes the teacher would say, well, I'm going to have to mark your child down for that. And I would say, I'm completely okay with that because I'm not interested in grades right now. I'm interested in a curious, enthusiastic learner. And so that's what I want. And then some teachers would say, you know what? Awesome, because your kid, you know, he's doing well in class. That's fine. That's going to take some courage for you. Some of you, whether you're a single mom or whether, you know, married couple, it gets stressful. And your life is busy and you're coming home from work. Look, there's no research that shows a correlation between doing well on homework and doing well in life, right? So you've got to balance it. You can't just say, oh, homework's stupid, we're not going to do it at all. But I would balance it out, because if every night is a fight and every night is tense and your child's crying and you're crying, it's just not worth it. And so I would balance that with how do they love to learn? So some other homework tips for you, besides getting other people to help with that. Sometimes it's a motivation issue for your older kids. Let me give you a quick example. Middle school, high school kids. I don't do my homework. Homework's stupid. I don't want to do well in school. I get that. So I often would get those kids a job of some kind, internship, working for another adult. I'll give you an example. Had this kid, 14 years old, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Typical hoodie sweatshirt kid, doesn't want to do his homework, really, really bright. If he would have just done it, it would have been done in like 30 minutes, but he just didn't want to do it because he didn't see a reason for it, right? By the way, your kids who do math problems, you're going to run into this. They don't want to show the work. And you're going to be like, well, you have to show the work. And their response is going to be, I showed you the work by getting the right answer. And you're just going to have to wrestle with that. At some point with my son, I just said, you know what? You're absolutely right about that. You own it. You go talk to your teacher about that. And if your teacher is fine with that, fine. But if not, teacher will hold you accountable. But your kids are awesome like that. They're really going to mess with you on those things because half of what they say really is true. And you have to decide whether you're going to fight it or not. So I talked to this kid, and he was really good at drawing. He wanted to be an architect. So I'll make a long story short. I found an architect. This architect had a talk with this kid and said, listen, I want you to come to my office. I will let you come one day a week after school. Your mom or dad can bring you to my office. You're going to take off your hoodie. You're going to put on a shirt and tie out of respect for me. You're going to do grunt work. You're going to make copies for me. You're going to run errands for me, take out my trash. But along the way, I will teach you to read blueprints. I will teach you what it takes to become an architect. But here are my rules. You must keep a B average in school. You must listen to what your mother says, and you have to do your chores. And you know what that kid said that he had never said to his parents? Yes, sir. Why? Because that architect had something that this kid cared about. So if you're taking notes, write this down. Find out, discover what your child cares about, because they don't care about school and grades and good study habits and organization. You and I care about that, but they don't. So here's how it played out. This architect was able to say, listen, you keep the B average, you do your chores, you're not coming to my office. This kid said, yes, sir. Why? Because he wanted to be an architect. Now he has an architect telling him, you better do well in school, you better go to college, and you've got to do well in college because I'm not hiring anyone who doesn't put everything into it. It turned the kid around. Now he had a reason to do the homework because he had a vision to become the architect. And for many of your kids, you have to get the vision first. Listen, they are not going to just take on your vision just because you care about homework and grades in school and college. They don't care. And so you have to find something that connects with them. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
That makes lots of sense. To the point of parental involvement in homework, we have two comments from two different parents that are absolute extremes. One parent says, my child should be doing this homework on her own. Why does she want me to be engaged in it? She's in the third grade. She should be doing it herself. And another commenter here says, I have to go over my child's homework to make sure that it's correct. So we have to do it twice because I'm checking it. How much should parents be involved?
Very, very good question. So overall, in our curriculum, we talk about stepping back so your child can step up and own his own choices, because that's how we were raised. I want to be engaged, but I want to be more engaged giving tools, but not standing over the child. Ideally, and look, this is hard because, Susan, you know, we've got kids all over the spectrum and in different places here, different capabilities. Because I can't advocate, oh, you know what, homework is yours. I did it when I was a kid. Tough luck if you can't do it. So I don't want to go that extreme. And some kids need a little bit more hand-holding. But overall, I like to step back, and my tone is, listen, homework is yours to do. I've got my own homework. I am available to give you tools, but I will not stand over you. And at a certain age, which you have to figure out yourself, depending on their maturity, I like to be able to say, listen, the teacher's going to handle your homework with you, okay? If you don't do your homework, then you need to take that up with your teacher and be accountable to your teacher, because at some point kids have to go get a job and be accountable to a boss, right? So I prefer to not be, here's why I don't want to be overly engaged, because when I'm overly engaged, I dump all of my own frustration and anxiety, and it comes out like this. Casey, come on, listen, you know the answer to that. If you would just do, right, and all that comes out, and now you're talking tears from both of you. So how I did homework with most of the kids in my house when I did it was, I would start with laying out the big picture and say, you know what you've got to do. I'm going to be working on my own project. I'm going to be fixing a meal for us. If you need help, you come get me. But I was noticing how they did homework best. So I'd have 10 kids in my house. Some kids would be laying underneath a table. I'd have a kid in a closet. It was weird, but it worked. I'd have a kid at the kitchen counter with headphones on, tapping a pencil into a sponge or something soft. And I was kind of watching, so I was available to them, but I wasn't standing over. It reminded me of a mom asked me a couple nights ago, and most of you will get this. When you check your child's work and you point out to them that they messed up, oh, you're going to get tears in World War III. You're stupid. Don't tell me that. They're not going to say, Mother, thank you for caring so much to check my homework. Now that you've pointed that out, I can correct it. That's not how they react. They feel stupid and dumb. So oftentimes what I will do, and this is for just about everything with them, if you want to write this word down, is space. I won't correct it in front of them, but I may go through, look at their sheet, and I've noticed that problem number 8 and number 13 is off. And without a lot of drama, I just say, hey, I circled a couple. When you when you're ready, which is a great, great, great phrase. When you're ready, you may want to look at those two. And if you need some help, just come get me. And then I walk away because it's embarrassing. It would be like your boss coming into your cubicle with a report that you wrote and saying, hey, there are a couple paragraphs here that are really off. So you need to fix those. And while you're fixing them, I'm just going to stand in your cubicle and make sure that you do it the right way. Oh, you would tense up and you would hate that boss. So giving them some space and not standing over. So Susan, does that make sense? If I'm going to give them
Yeah,
tools and I'm going to be
absolutely.
available, but not hovering.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the two comments that I read. One person is actually sitting and doing the homework with the child, and the other one is checking all the homework. And what you're describing is being available, helping perhaps if they don't understand how to do something, but not actually doing the homework or checking the homework, right? I think that's the key.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to, here's a phrase parents will like, is it's a respect issue. And this plays into just about every area. You know what? I respect you enough to believe you're capable of doing this on your own. And I'm not going to stand over you. Why? Because you're capable and I trust you. And I know that if you struggle, you'll come to me. And sometimes we'd have a code word. Here's another quick one for homework, because I know it's kind of a hot topic. The issue with a lot of kids was that they need context and they just couldn't get the concept. So I'd say, you know what? Close up that textbook, go grab a football. Let's go outside. We'll play catch. Let's talk about the concept so that you get the overall picture. Then you can come back and do the specific problem. And I guarantee for many of your kids, that's going to be the issue, is that they need to see the big picture first. Otherwise, they start getting really frustrated. Here's another quick one, if you don't mind. You see your child getting frustrated. You're going to get frustrated because now you're like, you know what? We don't have time. We've got this. We've got Taekwondo night. I've got to get dinner ready. We've got bedtime. I've got to get a bath. I've got to da, 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 da. And so being in control of yourself, I wish we'd spend an hour on that, is so critical, because if you key off of your child's frustration and you get frustrated, you may as well just say, let's all throw a big meltdown and go cry. So in that moment, what can you do to say, you know what, I totally get that you're frustrated. So you know what we're going to do? Why don't you pack that stuff up? Why don't we go to the basement? Why don't you just go, some of you have 3, 4, 5 kids. So sometimes you just say, you know what, let's just go. We're going to go outside. We're going to kick the soccer ball around and we'll break this negative little cycle. Then we'll go in and we'll attack it in a fresh way. Or we're going to go outside and do it. You know, I have some families, and you don't have to do this, but I have some families who do homework while sitting while eating dinner. Not my ideal way, but I want to give you permission, because I've worked with a lot of parents, and I want to give you permission, not that you need it from me, to do things in odd ways at times and not worry about getting judged by other people of like, oh, really? You do homework while you're eating dinner? You know what? If it works, just do it, right? Because you just have kids who are just tough. And I'd rather you do something in an odd way and enjoy yourself as a family and have kids who are curious and happy and learning. And again, come back to that. Write that on your fridge. I want a curious kid who loves to learn. And that's your metric, if you agree with that. And this year, when there are too many projects piling up, you go to the school and say, my child's suffocating. He's getting crushed by this and he's not even enjoying learning. And we had to go sometimes and say, you know what, your approved reading list contains all these books. My son's not interested in any of them, but he would love to read books about X, Y, and Z. And those are actually a grade level up. Could we do that instead? And you're just going to struggle at times, but I would keep the focus. You know, I'm on the back end. I've got a child, not a child, he's a young adult now. The kid is a voracious reader. He lives in Minnesota. He lives on his own now. And I'll get up in the morning and I'll have a text like, Dad, I'm so glad I wasn't like King Wilhelm I of Germany. I'm like, what are you reading? But you know what? But he's a deep thinker. And he's like, Dad, he went through this. And I love that he loves to learn, because I know if you have a love of learning and you're curious, you'll do great in life, right? I don't need to know what your grades are. But if you're curious and love to learn, you're going to be fine in life. So hopefully
Okay.
I take the pressure off. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's good. People are loving your comments, Kurt. They're really, really appreciating what you're saying. I just want to turn for a second to one of the most painful topics for all of us is our child's friendships. You mentioned specifically asynchronous development and problems with friendship there. I think that was interesting to people and would like to know more. And in general, how to help their teens, middle schooler and teens, form friendships is
Okay.
something that a number of people are raising.
Okay. So 2 or 3 things. One thing is this. I don't know a nice way to say it. Some of you are going to have to reconcile yourself to the fact that your child is not going to have a lot of friends. You are going to have to reconcile. There are some kids I have, most of my family, extended family, there are kids who are on the spectrum all over the place. I have a niece who has turned out to be a wonderful, amazing person. She has never had a lot of friends through high school. And I hope this doesn't sound bad, but it's true. She didn't care. And she didn't even notice because she's more kind of on the Asperger kind of spectrum. And she loved her horses. She had a couple close friends and that's it. And she didn't care to go to the prom. So if that's your child, embrace that and know you've got to separate what you care about and what your kids care about, right? So just because you're very social doesn't mean that your kids even want to. Now, here's the hard part. Some of you have kids who want to have friends and they don't know how, and they get ostracized and it hurts them and it crushes them. So I wish we had more time for it, but I'll throw this. You're going to have to teach them how to make friends because sometimes your kids do off-putting things and they don't know it. Role playing, as silly and goofy, and as much as I hate role playing, it's really, really effective. I used to take Casey out and we just go out in public and I'd show him how I talk to people and how I ask questions and find common interest. For teenagers, my go-to usually is to get them involved doing some kind of job or project, something in the community, maybe doing a service project, charitable project of some kind. Because what you'll find is they're going to meet other kids who share common interests. And that's the best way. It is really tough at school. Unless you've got at school, you've got a teacher, a guidance counselor who's kind of putting kids together, doing projects around common interests. All of us form friendships in a basic way, which is usually we're interested in the same thing, right? Like when you have toddler age kids, your friends tend to be other parents of toddler age kids. You have things in common. So see if you can get your child involved in something they're really good at doing. That's a key because many of your kids have too much anxiety to go out for the school play or to get involved in a group. So have another adult ask your child, hey, you're awesome at this. Listen, we're putting on this school play. You don't have to be in the play, but I could really use you in the background in set design. You'd be awesome. Could you come help with that? And in the course of doing set design, they're going to meet other creative kids. It's a really helpful way for them to do that. And again, on the page, I'll post some more things. I'll pull it off. I've got a program. It's called ADHD University. And we go through a ton. It's like 50 pages worth of stuff. And on that special follow-up page, I'll cut and paste some things I've written on social skills that hopefully will resonate with you and help your kids.
Great. So everyone, I think Kirk's talking about the attitude forums. We have set up a page, a topic just for him to answer any of your questions or post ideas that you may have. You go to the attitude website, go to the community tab and scroll down and you'll see the forums. In the forums, scroll down to webinars and then scroll down until you see Kirk's name. So I think that's a great way to get more from Kirk, who's given us so many great ideas.
I will be there. And if I may mention, if you have a direct question, just be patient with me. But you can email me. It's Kirk, Kirk, @celebratecalm.com. I'll get
Okay.
back to you. I'm traveling. It may be a couple days, but feel free to email and we'll help you out with that. So
That is very kind. Thank you so much, Kurt. And thank you, everyone, for your great participation today. We had so many wonderful comments. I wish we had many hours to address them. So thanks, everyone. Great webinar, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Kurt, as always.
Thanks,
Bye,
Susan.
bye
Bye-bye.
everyone.